Alright, my name is Nathan. My premise, once again, is life is fickle, so work hard and take the risks you are presented with, for you might not get another chance. Uh, my question for this game would be, can you make a fun game if you create a game where the player is put through a journey where they have total control over a character during the span of their life? Um, for this iteration, after watching Cass Holman, I really believe this game could be more plausible. Interactive storytelling games as a whole are often a favorite for gamers, but I feel a lot of those games today are still very handholdy. Most games today, even ones where you have multiple choices, often place the player within a box. That box is the objective. An example would be the interactive horror game Until Dawn. Many of the characters and their relationships are ultimately up to how the player interacts with another, but at the end of the day, you're still going to play through the story, and everyone will still end out if they make it that far throughout the game, but it will always lead to the same ending place. Um, so in that sense, it's still very handholdy with its objective choices and what freedoms will happen if a player goes so off on a tangent one way or commits to a different way. Uh, so I think if you add a little bit more freedom to that, people could really appreciate how vast and varied a game could become. One game that I also have been getting inspiration from is I've been playing the old Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and it adds, or not adds, but it has a system, or rather, it doesn't have the system of waypoints and objectives with missions. So your map is at all times ultimately empty. I think Cass Holman would appreciate this idea because you aren't given such a specific task as to go to one place or go to the other, but rather you're placed in a situation where missions only really tell you what's happened in the past. It doesn't really give you any information about what's going on around you. So it becomes ultimately up to you to explore the world, talk to different NPCs, talk to different factions, and just try to figure out how to get what is being asked of you done. And while the game is still guiding you down a story that is pretty linear, you do have a lot of options as how you get there. And as a player, instead of just cruising from point A to point B without any clue what's going on in the world around me, I feel like I'm actually exploring the world and getting a lot more into it as a player. So adding that into my game, I think that if the game had simple objectives for the player, like live, like that's all that the goal was to live during different stages of that character's life, and during that stage, the player tendencies and actions would influence what will come next in the game. If someone dedicates their person to being a good human, they've done everything that they can for those around you. They could create a game where the end is filled with friends, loved ones, and some closure for the character in the end. While if they chose to constantly misbehave, fight people, be an anarchist to the world, just a really bitter character just looking to destroy, or the players just having fun being trolly as they can, it could lead to an entirely destroyed world for that character where the good person is nowhere to be seen in any of the things they do, and they could just end up alone and bitter and waging fights till the end. I think simply just putting a player in a stage of life with, I'd say, 4 to 6 different big paths that they could go down, and even within those paths have different interacting branches, but those main ones will influence what the next worlds would be. I think people could really get into living out the life of that character in the game and seeing how different things could be, and how I think it would have a lot more replayability because people would be interested to see, well, what if I did this, and what if I went back and did that, or how much different would it be if I chose to align myself with this character in the game rather than this character. So those are my thoughts for iteration 2.